Good afternoon, on the dot. Welcome to the AI in Practice HR discussion today. Feel free to come off camera. We will get started with the slide presentation shortly. We have over 100 people registered for today, so we'll give it a minute or so, but respecting also that you have turned up on time. We've got wonderful speakers today. We have 3 speakers on the call, which we'll be introducing shortly. So Sarah, Dr. Ben Hamer and Dr. Sean Gallagher. So thanks for joining us, guys. And the focus of today, as you recall, is to look at the impact of AI, on the skills and workforce within HR, but also the top 10 uses of AI within HR as well. We've got a few AI, this has been my trend the last few webinars, I have to say. We have a number of attendees and then everyone seems to bring their AI note taker. So I end up having, 200 people join my call rather than the 100 I have invited, which is fun. But we are also recording. This webinar will be placed on our resources page for those that are interested as well. And particularly for anyone that has HR or people and culture team members or educators or tutors, this will be a really great resource for them to reference afterwards. Okay, I'm going to go in and share my screen and we will formally kick off our lunch and learn today. And I do hope everyone had a wonderful Easter. Okay, for those that are not familiar with me, my name is Siobhan O'Sullivan. I am the lead consultant on the FSO Skills Accelerator in AI, and our partner is with Microsoft. They have been our founding partner since August last year, and we have early this year created a new webinar series called AI in Practice, where we're focusing on a deep dive in particular areas within organisations, and particularly within the constraints of education. So talking to students and also people that work in the area of HR. And today we're very pleased to be partnering with AHRI, the Australian Human Resource Institute, for this webinar and this deep dive. Before we kick off though, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the lands on which we're joining today. I'm ringing in from Sydney, and the traditional custodians of the lands on which I'm joining from are the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, but also reminding us that we're all calling in from different parts of Australia, and feel free to put into the chat as well the traditional owners of the land in which you're calling in from if you'd like to. So today's webinar will go fairly quickly. We're going to move fast. I'm going to introduce Sarah in a moment, and she will also then move into her short presentation on the Australian Human Resources Institute, but then also introduce our guest speakers, Ben, and then Ben will introduce Sean. So with Sarah McCann Bartlett, I would like to say that she has been the CEO and Managing Director of the Australian Human Resources Institute for Australia. It's a professional body for HR professionals and practitioners, and it's a position she has held for over 6 years. Sarah is an experienced leader of membership and industry bodies and has held senior positions in leadership in Australia, the UK and the US. And her mission is to help members achieve their goals by providing leading insight and advocacy. Okay, I think there's a couple of people not on mute, but I will throw the mic to Sarah, and yeah, we'll put any questions you have, guys, into the chat channel. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much, Siobhan and the Future Skills organisation for having us. I'm just going to share my slides now, which should be coming up for you all.
Yeah, perfect, Sarah. We can see.
Terrific. So, great to be here today, and terrific to be partnering on this really important topic. As Siobhan has said, AHRI is the professional body for HR. We have almost 18,000 members around Australia. We set the standards for the practice of HR in Australia, and we support our members and the wider HR profession with knowledge, capability development, and their career progression. So why is AI so important for HR? Most organisations aren't keeping up with the important role of HR in AI strategy and implementation. Despite high usage rates of AI, many employers still don't have the frameworks, the guidelines, or the training required. And we're now really starting to see a focus on the human impact of AI. There's a lot of news about potential job losses. We're really thinking about psychosocial safety, the intensity of work that AI is creating, and new skills, just to name a few. And in this area, HR has a really essential role to play. As my role is to set the scene for Ben and Sean, our expert speakers, I won't go into too much detail on this slide, but it summarises research we've done on AI in partnership with QUT and also as part of our Q4 Work Outlook report from late last year. In our latest survey from last year, more than 90% of organisations told us they now use AI. And 3/4 of them said they do train their employees to use AI, with over 80% saying they also consult their employees about its implementation. Again, more than 80% are saying that that AI is making or will make their organisations more efficient and more productive. And interestingly, and this is a question we get asked a lot, at the moment, they're saying entry-level opportunities are increasing due to AI, with over 40% of organisations saying they've got growth in entry-level roles, compared with just under 20% saying they've got a decline. But we're all really watching this space at the moment. Looking at activities through the talent pipeline, acquisition or recruitment, development of skills and capability, and retention of employees, the three stages of the talent pipeline, we can see that there are both benefits and risks of the use of AI in HR, both within the HR team's operations themselves, but also across the wider organisation. And as we move into talent development and retention, we can see some more human issues emerging around the loss of skills and knowledge through automation, access, and the loss of informal learning. And then issues of trust, dehumanisation, well-being, and psychological safety. And in our 2025 research, we did see 60% of respondents agreeing that AI is increasing work intensity for employees, which does go to those issues of well-being and psychological safety. I'm now going to give you a bit of a peek sneak of our AHRI readiness framework. So this is a summary, but the full framework, which includes a comprehensive list of diagnostic type questions for each of these 9 boxes on the screen. It can be downloaded for members from our AHRI Assist portal, and it's also covered in one of our AI courses in detail. So the framework has got 3 areas of focus, and I'll talk to some of the considerations for each of those. So ideation, so this is where organisations should be defining their AI ambitions, their vision for AI, and also putting in place their governance structures. So asking questions like, why are we using AI and how are we going to use it? What are the outcomes we want to achieve? What are our principles for use? And does our governance structure include accountability for things like AI risks and outcomes? Then if you move across to the right and think about implementation, understanding what tools will be used for what purpose. How are we developing our policies and processes and what's in them? What are the implications for things like workforce design, planning, and development capability? And what's the potential impact for workforce wellbeing? And then inspection, which is reviewing, monitoring, assessing, and refining AI implementation. And a key point is in the inspection area or across all 3 areas is while many organisations put their focus on performance and compliance lenses across ideation, implementation, and inspection, the AI readiness framework also incorporates that well-being and the human elements of AI, which, as I've said, are becoming increasingly more important. So just having a look at some of the upcoming AI developments for HR, Ben and Sean will deep dive into many of these, I'm sure. Some of the things we're starting to see or can be considered are co-owned AI governance roles focused on both HR and the digital areas combined. Joint HR and IT frameworks to oversee the AI rollout and ethical standards, and also leaders really needing skills in AI strategy, data literacy, and workforce transformation, with HR being really positioned as a key change agent. Research suggests that CHROs and CPOs expect employees and AI agents to be working collaboratively as the norm within about 5 years. And we're also seeing traditional job titles and whole roles giving way to skill-based talent models. And AI personalization is going to allow tailored pathways based on employee behaviour and skill gaps, delivering just-in-time learning and content. And so what does this mean for HR leaders in terms of their strategic imperatives? And what are we going to see over the next 10 years? So we're going to see AI move from being a tool HR uses to becoming a really core layer of how organisations operate and how work itself is structured, with HR really sitting in the centre of this transformation because it touches on work design, skills, ethics, and culture. I've already talked about moving to a skills-based economy. And so that means that jobs and roles will become much more fluid. We're going to see decision-making being much more AI augmented. And again, that growth in AI-driven career navigation or career building, all of which make AI governance, ethics, and workforce trust an imperative for all of us. So I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Ben Hamer, who's going to talk to us about the impact of AI on HR skills and on our workforce. Ben is the Chief Futurist at Thinkertank. He's an AHRI non-executive director and also, importantly, chair of AHRI's Future of Work advisory panel. Ben, I am going to stop sharing and hand over to you.
Thanks, Sarah. It's always fun trying to do the seamless change of screen sharing. So just bear with me for a second. But hi, everyone. As Sarah said, my name's Ben and very excited to be here today and talking about the impact of AI on the workforce and skills for this little bit. So if we take stock of where we are today, and ground ourselves in 2026, what we can see is we're experiencing change at the fastest rate in history, but the slowest it will be for the rest of our lives. And the amount of change we can expect to see in the next decade will be similar to that we've experienced in the last century. So there's a lot in that. And a big part of that comes down to what we're seeing with AI. And there's research from PwC that suggests that this is an economic leap that's on par with that of the first industrial revolution. So a lot going on, a lot of opportunity and potential. But the question really in all of this isn't whether AI matters, because of course that ship has sailed. It's very much about where do we go from here. Now, most people, when we think about AI, we think about opening a chat window, typing a question and getting an answer. But what we're already starting to see more of now is AI that doesn't just answer questions, right? It completes tasks, it plans for you, it makes decisions, and it acts often without you needing to then prompt it. So as Sarah said, we're moving away from AI being this tool that we use to AI being something that really works autonomously and on your behalf, what we call agentic AI or AI agents. And if we look at something like construction and logistics, right, what we're already seeing is you've got agents that are able to monitor site conditions in real time. It can flag safety breaches. It can auto-generate incident reports, and it can escalate it to the right person without a human actually needing to trigger any of that. And if we then look at HR, you can see that agents are already managing onboarding workflows from end to end. So they're doing things like collecting documents, scheduling inductions, chasing completions, and updating everything in the system. So we're already starting to see this take shape, and soon enough, we're going to see every company have a blended workforce of humans and these agents. And if that feels quite far off, right? So just 2 weeks ago, Monday.com, you might know them as like a work management platform. They recently launched something called agenttalent.ai. And so this is a talent marketplace for AI agents, kind of like a job board, a Seek or an Indeed, but where AI agents can apply. So instead of posting a job for a human, you post a job ad and an AI agent could apply for it. And then you can review the agent's profile, assess its fit, and hire the best candidate off the back of it, which sounds pretty crazy. I've spoken to a few people about it, and I have to say there tends to be a similar reaction to it all, which is, you kind of pause, you question whether it's real, but then sit with this unease that perhaps the world's moving just a little bit faster than we were expecting. And I think that reaction is pretty telling, because when we look at what's happening on the ground right now, you've got 29% of Australian workers who believe that AI will cost them their job within the next 5 years, so almost 1 in 3. And the generation that would least expect to feel that way, so Gen Z, the ones who are most digitally fluent and most confident using AI, these are also the ones that are worried about it the most. And so this tells us that confidence and fear are rising at the same time. But then another thing worth noting is that 32% of workers are actively avoiding conversations about AI at work and disclosing how they're using it. So they are using the tools, but they're not talking about how, because they're worried that people might think they're lazy for using AI. Other people feel like it's almost admitting you're in bed with the enemy. And for some, they're concerned that their boss might think that they have all this extra time on their hands if they're using AI, so we'll just give them more work to do. And when we look at that anxiety, it isn't evenly distributed either. So our research shows at Think Tank that 81% of Gen Z feel confident using AI and emerging tech, compared to just 33% of baby boomers. So a really notable 48 percentage point gap between your younger and older workers. And so while adoption itself may look healthy, underneath it, there are signs that we're anxious, we're a bit disengaged, and we're really just waiting to see what happens next. And this is where we all have a really big part to play in this. So a major, or sort of the biggest thing we can do, it comes down to building our AI fluency. This is the most valuable skill for our workforce. So it's not your qualifications, it's not your years of experience, it's your AI fluency. And this was backed up by research from Microsoft. They found that 70% of hiring managers would rather hire someone that was less qualified who knows how to use AI over someone who's more qualified and experienced but doesn't know how to use it. So a really telling sign there, right? And part of that's the ability to know when to use it, but it's also how to use it well, and critically, what not to hand over to AI as well. Because one of the risks that we're starting to see is what we call skill atrophy. So if you think about muscle atrophy, that's, say you break your leg, you're in a hospital bed, and you're not using your leg for a period of time, so your muscles weaken. That same concept gets applied to skills where, we keep giving things to AI without deliberately thinking and intentionally thinking about what we're giving it, that we stop exercising that judgment ourselves, that judgment that made us good at our jobs in the first place. And in essence, we essentially de-skill. And so HR has a really critical role to play here. And this was also backed up with some LinkedIn data. So LinkedIn's Jobs on the Rise report for Australia this year ranked OD managers as one of the 5 fastest growing roles in the country. So you've got Chief Risk Officer in there, you've got AI engineer, obviously, but OD managers, organizational development managers were in there. And that's because companies are facing into questions like what skills are becoming more valuable, what ones are being eroded, and what does it mean to reskill a workforce where the half-life of a skill keeps getting shorter and shorter? And so, of course, I've already mentioned AI fluency. That's right up there. But then it also comes down to the skills that complement but don't compete with technology. So those are skills like communication, critical thinking, adaptability, and the ability to work with and through other people, right? but it also comes down to things like asking better questions. And then it's also about staying curious, because the people who thrive in this next chapter aren't necessarily going to be the most technically capable ones. They're the people who keep learning. And finally, there's the skills of HR practitioners themselves, because as AI takes on more of this transactional work, so think the admin, the compliance chasing, and the scheduling, what's left with work is everything that requires a human. So that's the conversations that need empathy, the decisions that need judgment, and the culture work that really needs present. And that's where HR has an opportunity to step into what I believe is its most strategic role yet. So conscious that's a bit of a whistle stop tour, but as HR practitioners, it's really about how you go and build that AI literacy and fluency that we spoke about, balanced with those skills that help you to complement but not compete with technology, almost putting the human back in human resources. But when it comes to that AI literacy and fluency, it's getting across a wide range of different tools, understanding a lot of different use cases. And to help with that, we're going to hear from Dr. Sean Gallagher, who is the founder of Humanova. So Sean, my turn to now stop sharing, and I will throw it over to you.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Sarah. Nice to be with you today. I have a lot less time than I thought I had to talk, so I'm going to have to rush through these slides, or at least give you a bit of a tighter overview. I want to talk to you about how you can start to think about applying AI within HR. And where do you start? I mean, HR is a fairly broad function with lots of different use cases. And this is slides that I've taken from the course that I developed and deliver for AHRI, which is in its third year now, navigating the essentials of AI. And what we have done is we've taken the value chain that was developed by BCG. Now, all of us have different HR value chains, but roughly, I think this is probably a fairly good and accurate representation of the way that you do HR in each of your organizations. And what they found in their research, this was back early in 2023, believe it or not, they found that AI had the potential of driving 30% increased productivity across the value chain in the near term. So what is this value chain? Well, there are 4 different stages: anticipate, HR strategy and planning; attract, recruiting and resourcing, HR admin and shared services; develop, compensation and benefits, L&D, and performance and career management; and then engage, employee engagement and employee relations. Now, as I said, there's a lot of work that you do in HR in your daily jobs, but where's actually the best place to start applying AI? Because it's too much to, you have to start with an elephant by one bite. Where might that be? We did a couple of years ago a program with a major insurer. They had 120 people in their HR function, and they pretty much came to us with that question: where do we start applying AI within the HR function of our team? And so we held a number of workshops, and we worked through their demands and their needs, and we focused on what was low risk and high volume. And this is what they came out with. So anticipate was about 13%, attract 41%, HR and admin and shared service 47, compensation and benefits 14, 27 for L&D, 6% for performance career management, 10 for employee engagement, and 2% for employee relations. Well, little did they know that the top 3, HR admin and shared services, recruiting and resourcing, and L&D, were exactly the top 3 areas that BCG found in their modeling a couple of years prior. So this was really where the rubber hits the road for this insurance company. And in fact, this is the areas in which we recommend everyone starts applying AI within HR. These are high volume and often lower risk categories. You're not dealing, for most of the in these instances, with proprietary data, with highly secure, and confidential information. Most of it is publicly available or is lower risk data if it happened to leak. So they wanted to know where in HR, admin, and shared services they should apply. And so we did a bit more work and we focused on automation of routine tasks, enhanced query resolution and support, and data management and analysis. And likewise, for recruiting and resourcing, they identified these three areas: enhancing job description and candidate profile creation, streamlining candidate screening and engagement, and bias awareness and DEI in recruitment, which is a core part of the course that I've been doing for 2 years now for AHRI. And then L&D, tailored content creation, integration of learning into workflows, and LNAs. But of course, that was ideal for this organization. And while those three areas might be fantastic for everyone to start focusing on, I want to leave you with a much broader framework to help you understand where you can begin applying AI, not just within HR, but also as your role as people leaders across your organizations in steering the way that AI is integrated in a low risk way, but in a way that scaffolds up and allows you to build capability to apply AI at even more complex tasks. If I looked at all of the work that either any of you do within your roles or across your organization, 60, 70, 80% of the time that you spend at work is down the bottom of this work value pyramid on administrative and basic functional tasks. In other words, you spend most of your time on tasks which create the least value for your organization. The ideal with AI is that that can help automate and repurpose the time saved at the bottom of the pyramid and focus at the top where you create the most value for your organizations. And that's where we switch the role, where human AI collaboration becomes important. I know we're very short on time. I'm not going to go through all of these, but just to give you an idea from an HR perspective, some examples of activities you can apply. So I would always recommend starting down the bottom of the pyramid. This is an incredibly sophisticated and technology. You don't want to apply it for a very high value problem until you build up the capability and intuition for working with AI. So what are some of the tasks within HR that you can begin to begin this journey? Well, from the administrative categories, sort of summarizing information, structuring, checking or improving language, or managing tasks and workflows. And you can see some examples over there on the right. And then we'll gradually move to doing functional work that applies to your HR expertise. This is where we're starting to produce things, to create content that didn't exist before. So drafting an email handbook, or building a headcount report, or designing slides for quarterly people and culture update. These first two categories are doing work. You're not really solving problems. This is work you do all of the time. But when we get to the top of the pyramid, this is where we start to solve new or complex problems. And this is really where you're going to, where strategic HRM, this is the future of HR. So beginning to, for example, from an attrition perspective, identifying flight risk patterns, or benchmarking parental leave policies, or getting across new psychosocial hazard regulations, or even brainstorming retention interventions for hard to fill roles, etc. These are purely just examples for each of those. But hopefully in that brief little session, I've given you some insights as to how you think about where to start applying AI within HR.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Sarah, Ben, and Sean. There has been a few questions put into the chat channel, but now if you have one, please do share it in there. I'll start reading some of them out as we progress. I suppose the first question I'm keen to know, just a quick one, which Gen AI tool do you tend to go to? Do you have a preference? Ben or Sean can answer that one.
I tend to, I think the way to go is to focus on the frontier models. We're at HumanOver, we're tool agnostic. We've done training on Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, or even Copilot Chat. that is where you begin to build up your ability to collaborate with AI. As we all know, yes, you can have Copilot integrated within the Microsoft suite of products. It's a little underwhelming. And while it does help on some task productivity, you're really not going to be able to get to apply AI in a much more, those more complex problems, which are really through those chat type interfaces. The other thing I would say is that as AI and agents, as Ben was clearly articulating, become more and more sophisticated, they're going to do all of the basic task work that we do within not just HR, in all of our roles. So focusing on building up an intuition to work with AI on much more complex work is really the future of human work within our organizations. So, and the best way to do that is with the frontier models.
Yeah, for me, I would just say that it depends on what you're using it for. But if I had to pick one, my favorite is Claude.
Okay, very good. Catherine McGilvray has asked a couple of questions, so feel free to come off mic, Catherine, if you'd like, or I can read them out. So there's been an automatic AI for many years. So how do you see this as different? Question mark, personalization, question mark.
What do you mean by automatic AI?
Hi, Sean. Hi, Ben. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so automation with AI in general has been around for 30 or 40 years.
Yep.
So we're talking about generic AI automation, which is different to previously known AI automation. So that's what my question is. How do you explain to people? I just didn't know if people understood the difference between AI automation and generic AI automation.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's very important to understand the distinction. Yes, AI has been around with us for, well, the theory's been around for like 50, 60 years, and we've been using AI, even though we haven't known, for a good 20, 25 years. Every time you do a search on Google or buy a book on Amazon and it predicts what other things you might like, that's machine learning. That's predictive AI, and it's very incredibly helpful, and it's been around for a while. It works on structured data, and it works within very specific data sets, being able to identify what are the key variables in order to predict future performance of data within that category. And as it's great for weather, it's great for sales, it's all of that stuff, and even for predicting turnover in your organization. So really helpful. Generative AI works on unstructured data. It's incredibly good at finding patterns across unrelated data, ingest the entire internet. It's also structured differently in the sense that it's based on the architecture mimics the neural networks of our brain. And so it is able to look at the patterns within your prompts to then match it to the patterns of the data it has in its training, and is able to create something new. So it works quite differently, even though that they're both AI. One predicts where the next iteration might be. The other creates something totally new.
Thanks, Catherine. Thanks, Sean. One of the other questions also shared was the crossover between HR and L&D, and you talked a little bit about I think Ben, actually talked about OD managers being quite important now in organisation. Who is responsible for the uplift of AI capability? Do we sit there and say it's the HR departments? Is it every line manager's role? Is it the executive? Is it the chairperson? Where does it sit?
I would say it's all the above. I think we all have a responsibility ourselves, right? And it goes back to that point I said from the Microsoft study, where the majority of hiring managers would rather hire someone who was, less qualified and less skilled, but knows how to use it. So I think in terms of our own employability and our own value in the job market, it really there's a responsibility to that. I think that organizations absolutely need to be sort of not just throwing access to tools, but supporting that with the underpinning capability uplift as well. And I think HR needs to play a much bigger role in all of this. I think that a lot of the time a lot of organizations kind of throw it as some kind of IT rollout. Whereas this is the largest workforce transformation that we've seen in generations. It's fundamentally reshaping work, job design, the whole lot. And HR needs to have the seat at the table and, you know, being the co-pilot, pun intended, in sort of adopting this and building that capability in organizations.
I think the thing we're hearing a lot about, sorry, much even before AI, but particularly with AI, is shadow ITing, where organizations have a view of their policy, but everyone's using their own device to explore things. So having an approach and a transition for the org is super important. Another question coming in from Jeff Pentney. Hopefully I pronounced your surname. Yeah.
Yes, I'm the one on the screen. Thank you. The baby boomer on the screen, and
awesome.
After being in this function for 40 odd years, the key role we play is influencing the perceptive judgment of others, particularly senior leaders, around the sort of cultural frameworks that that high performance really thrives in. And I see a really important part to this, but I just worry about the cognitive skill base of people being totally reliant on accessing data and their ability to actually aggregate that and understand. So I'd appreciate some feedback on this, being someone that sees the value after being in this function for so long, but really is trying to get a handle on not how to manage it, but how to leverage it.
I think the key thing, Jeff, with yourself and with all of your colleagues is just to start using it. One of the things that I think is really important to change our mindsets is don't see it like any other technology. And for those people that say it's just like other technologies, don't believe them, because it's not. Don't see it as an answer machine. Don't see it as I put in an input and I get a response or an output. Yes, it can do that, but that's maybe 1% of its value. See AI as a digital colleague. It's incredibly capable. It is smarter than anyone you've ever worked with. It has an endless ability to do work for you. It's incredibly agreeable. It makes mistakes. It's naive, and it doesn't understand the context in which you work. So you're working with someone that, with, you know, just in the same way that with all of your colleagues that you've worked with over the years, when you've given them a task to do, you have a pretty good idea at how well they'll do it based on their strengths or their weaknesses. That intuition for your colleagues is exactly the same type of intuition we need to work with AI. And just one little trick for you, Jeff, and for everyone else, is with AI, get it to ask you questions. Get it to ask you questions about, to ensure that you're fully informed to help me on whatever it is. Can you ask me questions to tease out any blind spots that I might have, or to make sure that you have as comprehensive context as possible, whatever it might be. Flip it around, and start to see this as a collaborative opportunity with AI. And I can guarantee that once you start doing that, you'll be able to use AI pretty much in any task that you come across.
Really appreciate it. Thank you. A few tips.
Thanks, Jeff. Ben, I loved your, Sean, I loved your comment. The IT department where AI goes to die, it used to be where innovation goes to die is big business. So we've adapted that statement. Privacy. So Catherine's shared another query. If AI is recording interviews, looking at resumes, how can they trust their personal data is managed securely in the AI and the organization?
I mean, it's an interesting question. I also think it's not an AI question, though. I think, we've been using, I have to laugh. I read an article the other week, by the way, where HR managers are getting annoyed about the amount of people that are using AI to write their job applications, and the volume's increased. And I'm like, but you guys have been using AI for years to screen applications and to actually review it. So it kind of now seems like it's AI putting in the application and AI screening it. But it's a general privacy question. We've been looking at employee data. We've been looking at X, Y, and Z for however long. It's just now AI is the dimension with which we look at it, and it makes it a little bit more complex. But I don't think it's any different to how we would treat employee or customer data ordinarily.
Catherine, maybe you'd like to, thanks Ben, would you like to come off mic and talk about the 8-fold lawsuit question?
Yeah, look, it's not something that I've dived very deeply into, but yeah, Eightfold is one of the tools that HR organisations have been using, and there's a current large lawsuit in the US based on its original design and how it's capturing and taking people's information and a whole bunch of things. So yeah, I just encourage people just to be aware of it. It's in place. They may not have done anything. I don't know. It's just going through the court case at the moment. But it's just really interesting to ask those questions, that just because you believe that it's true and the company that you're using that product for is going to do the right thing, I think it's about being able to really understand the guardrails that are in place.
Thanks, Catherine. And I'll leave Ben or Sean to answer that. I just did want to take, as we have 5 minutes left of the webinar, time to say thank you for joining, but also to seek your feedback. We run these events and are mindful of the value of your time. So getting your feedback on how we landed today's conversation and also the insights in relation to AI use in HR would be great. But that doesn't stop the questions coming in. So I now am sharing my screen. Tanya, so if any other questions, could you please verbalise them, because I'm not able to see them all. Thank you very much. But Ben or Sean, on Catherine's question about the Eightfold matter in the US, any comments or thoughts on that one?
I don't. Ben, you might. I don't know if you know the details. I don't know the details of that case. It's probably two things. Either one, the AI gave false information upon which the company acted and made an error, or two, uploading personal or confidential information into AI. And with both of them, there's the first one is that people that use AI a lot don't talk about hallucinations. Yes, AI hallucinates, but it's kind of like saying, oh yeah, but John, he's weak in this area, and I know he's not going to do that job very well. You just get to know that about AI, and you always make sure that you are, you accommodate that, and by having this collaborative arrangement, you sort of significantly avoid those hallucinations, so to speak. In terms of data security, etc., often there's a misconception that it's the language model itself, that some third party has sort of typed in a question, oh, can you give me FSO's strategy plan for 2027 or whatever it is, and there's somehow someone's going to extract that data. Large language models don't work that way. Even if let me put it this way, there has not been a verified instance anywhere of a third party being able to extract information from a large language model that was otherwise confidential. Can it happen? I'm not saying it's non-zero, but it doesn't happen. The big issue is how your data gets to the AI and gets back, and how it's stored in order to work with the AI, not the AI itself. So I think it's really important that when you see these cases, you look at the Deloitte incident, right? Where they got in trouble with the Fed government for those hallucinated reference and citations. That's not the AI's error. That's a human error, right? And so I think it's really important to look at these things from an understanding of how AI actually works and what it is. And once you start to do that, you realize it's a governance issue, or it's a training issue, or it's a security issue in terms of making sure that you've got the right safety protocols on your data at rest and in transit, not just about what happens in the AI.
So
yeah, I think sorry, Sean, just to quickly finish out, again, I think this all just comes back to the same problem or same challenges just with AI as the instigator. It's kind of like the amount of people who, when we went to working from home during COVID and we said, well, they're not working well from home. It's like, well, they probably weren't working well in the office either. It's a performance management issue. It's not a work from home issue. And again, I don't think these are AI issues. What you say, Catherine, is totally right, but we should be doing that due diligence with all of our IT procurements and all of our partners and tools and everything in our ecosystem. Similarly, I think Irene said in the chat, she believes that this example talks to information of job seekers being scraped from public portals like LinkedIn, where you get given a score. I mean, are you comfortable to do that? Because as humans and as job hiring managers, we look at LinkedIn anyway. So again, it comes down to just doing your own due diligence, as you would with anything else in all of this.
So one of the things that strikes me as interesting from a HR perspective is the adage, you get what you reward, which has been spoken about a long time in the HR stream. So if we know as potential applicants that HR practitioners are using AI to screen my resume, I'm going to curate my resume, to be as best as it can be for that. So AI for the resume, AI to scan it. Where's the human in the loop here, where it used to be sort of understanding you'd scan a resume and get a flavor of that applicant and all its nuances and all the value that they bring, rather than a binary view of, I don't know, a certain school, a certain qual, and a certain badge or organisation you may have worked at. What's your thoughts on how much this is moving to technology and losing the value of the individual?
Well, I might push back there a little bit, Siobhan, in the sense that this is actually one of the powers of AI, in that traditionally you have assessed the candidate against particular criteria and how well or not that they addressed it. But one of the things with AI is that you could actually look at the broader patterns within someone's resume and experience and identify this person may not have met all of the criteria, but they're heading in a direction that is, is aligned with where you want to go. So I think there's, this is again recognizing our ability to work with AI in a much more sophisticated way. So let's leverage its power to actually identify these patterns and to actually do better at HR than what we have been doing previously.
I mean,
Awesome.
I would just argue as well that maybe we need to ask a different question and challenge our assumptions. So if we look at, say, the education sector, they're looking at how do we stop students cheating using AI, when the question should be, do we need a different assessment method? And I think the same thing applies here. Are we losing the human in the loop? Well, do we need a new job application method? Do we need a new interview method? Do we need a new screening method? Why are we just thinking it's the same thing with AI now at play, and we just need to sort of Frankenstein the model rather than think about something, and how we rewrite those assumptions from scratch?
Love that. What a great way to end. Tanya, your hands up.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we covered this already. There was one question, I'm not sure that we got to it, which is there any evidence to suggest that increased AI job application screening is pushing towards the practice on practice being who you know, and therefore reducing the scope and possibilities of diverse talent getting roles?
I missed that last bit. Can you say that last bit?
It's around, is it being pushed towards the practice of being on who you know, and therefore reducing the scope and possibilities of diverse talent getting roles? And it got a few upvotes.
I don't know any evidence that suggests that. I think it's one of those things where it absolutely could happen. And again, similarly with any part of a recruitment process where you're trying to eliminate bias and things like that, you want to make sure that you are having these conversations internally. You want to use this as a check and balance against your processes to make sure that you don't get lazy and therefore fall into the trap of, nepotism, and the who you know model. But some companies, as we know, the who you know model works and they incentivize it and reward and give you, $5K for bringing someone in as well. So again, it's one of those ones that depends on, what's right for you and right size, but it's a good question to ask and use it as one of those internal checks and controls, but no evidence that I know of.
Me neither.
Awesome. Well, that does extend our lunchtime by 3 minutes. I would like to say thank you, a reaction from me, thumbs up for today. Really appreciate the presentations. Thank you, Sarah, for curating such wonderful speakers, and thank you, Ben and Sean, for taking the time to talk today. Really appreciate that. Recording will be available on our website. Give us a few days. But thanks very much for everyone for joining. Cheers.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.